this business-to-business masterclass arranged by Startup Sweden and Ignite Sweden. My name is Ronja Koepke, and I will be your moderator for this session. Today we have people watching from 78 countries. And before we get this masterclass started, I would like to introduce you to Arash from Startup Sweden. Hello, Arash. Are you with me?
Hello.
Hi.
Yes,
How are you today?
really good. Really excited about this session.
Good, me too. So can you tell us, what is Startup Sweden?
Yes. So Startup Sweden is a program within the Swedish growth agency, also called Tillväxtverket. And our passion is to create equal and valuable opportunities for startups and scale-ups. And we do that by basically making sure that our programs and matchmaking activities are in line with the needs of the entrepreneurs and making sure that they lead to increased sales and investments for the entrepreneurs.
Sounds fantastic. So with your cool booth camps that I noticed you have, how far along in my startup journey do I have to be a part of your booth camp?
Yeah, so basically we have different types of programs. So our national programs and the boot camps we run, they're mainly targeting early stage tech startups. So basically, if you have an MVP or close to launch, you're more than welcome to those type of programs. But we also have different types of programs globally supporting scale-ups and startups that want to expand their businesses to new markets.
Fantastic. How many can take part in one booth camp? Is it very exclusive?
It's 10 companies for the national boot camps, and we have 20 companies for the global boot camps we run.
And then I know that you have something called Sweden Demo Day coming up. Can you tell me about it?
Yes, and Sweden Demo Day, I usually say it's really hard to describe. It's almost impossible. You have to experience it. But I will do my best. So Sweden Demo Day is basically the format of it is an unconference, which means no speakers, no keynotes, no seminars. It solely focuses on networking and matchmaking between startups, investors, and corporates. And what's unique about Sweden Demo Day is that every startup gets basically the same opportunity and equal opportunity to sketch their pitch into a 2-meter long brown paper. And then after they are done, we just let thousands of participants into the room, and then you can only imagine the creativity and the magic and the energy which just goes all day along with those great pitches that the companies have to customers, investors. It's quite fantastic. So I'm really happy that we are arranging that next year as well. It won't be a physical event, but it will be a digital experience. So I would
no brown papers this year.
All of you.
No brown papers?
It will be different types of brown papers.
Okay. I mean, I have visited Sweden Demo Day, and it's truly an amazing event. So how do I score a ticket if I want to go?
Well, basically, we are planning now for the next Sweden Demo Day. So end of this year, we will open and it will be announced when the date will be. It will most probably end up in springtime. But so far, there is no link up, but we were working on that. So as soon as we have that on, you're more than welcome to join us for Sweden Demo Day 2021.
And which website, where do I find the tickets when you release them?
It's on swedendemoday.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Arash. Let's move over to Sara from Ignite Sweden, who's joined us online as well. Do we have you, Sara?
Happy to be here. Happy to have this event finally. We have planned it for a while, so I'm super excited about it.
Welcome. Can you tell us, Sara, what is Ignite Sweden?
Well, Ignite Sweden is a non-profit organization that helps startups finding their first customer. So what we do is that we try to get to know the large corporates or public sector a lot and understand the challenges and their needs. and then we find a startup that actually can solve these problems and challenges. And then we arrange meetings between those two parties. So actually both the startup and the corporates know that they're going to meet before and are prepared before the meeting. And we focus more on the business side than investment. So it's a business meeting for the startups so they can get customers.
Fantastic.
And we have worked mostly with Swedish startups until now, but in this event tomorrow we will actually match both corporates and startups from 10 different countries, as we got extra money financing from Vinnova, which we are super happy about, so we can go globally now, not only Sweden. So this is very exciting.
It is. And can you tell us, what has Ignite Sweden achieved so far?
Well, we measure what happens after the meeting each year. And I can't reveal the numbers for this year yet because they will come in December. But I can tell you, we can see that it's actually 6 to 9 months after the meeting that the actual deal will happen. And we have measured the public sector. And from that, you can see that 10% of the meeting actually end up in a deal in the end for the startups. But for the private sector, for the corporate side, we will reveal the numbers in December, so very soon. So
Great.
stay tuned for that. But you can see from until 2019, there were 101 deals for startups.
Fantastic. And today I know that there's a sales boost class for the startups who is participating tomorrow. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah. Yeah, for the startups, it's actually 134 startups being part of a meeting corporates tomorrow. So they can take part of the sales boost at 1 o'clock. And there you will meet our head sales coach. He will go through the structure. We have a meeting structure, and what we can see, the startup that actually follow that structure have more success in their meetings. So I think there will be you will learn a lot from being part of that session, and there will also be an opportunity to ask questions for a head coach, Christian.
Fantastic. Well, this all sounds amazing. So how does one join Ignite Sweden?
Yeah, well, you can always contact me. I have my LinkedIn and my email in the profile here in Hopin, or our website, ignitesweden.org. You will be part of that. Just sign up there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sara.
Thank you.
It is time to kick off this day with our first speaker. Johanna Melin is the founder and CEO of Trice Imaging Europe. Trice Imaging is a cloud solution for medical imaging with customers in 43 countries. Johanna has 12 years of experience of selling SaaS solutions to healthcare providers around the globe. Today, she will share her learnings from scaling globally. Johanna, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. What an exciting topic, B2B sales. I will take you through what Tricify, our platform, does and where we are today and what we learned during the baby years and what we learned the last couple of years when we've been scaling our company. So Trice's mission is to provide quality of care for people regardless of who and where they are. Today, 1/3 of the global population doesn't have access to imaging tools. It's a vital tool to diagnose cancer, heart disease, stroke, respiratory infection, and pulmonary diseases. So we provide hospitals and clinics a cloud-based medical imaging solution where they can archive their data, where they can document their medical imaging exam, where they can share their data to a doctor somewhere in the world that could do a second opinion, and they can also share securely to patients. We have today around 1,500 hospitals and clinics as customers in 42 countries. And the 5 use cases that they use Tricify for is to upload and archive their medical imaging exams. That could be an ultrasound, an MRI, or a CT study. to access the data from wherever you are, as long as you have a web browser, to document your imaging exams, and to share the data to a patient or for another doctor, and to do big research projects around the world. So today, so we're almost 10 months into 2020, and we've done 2.2 million patient shares this year. We have around 17,000 Tricify users. We have uploaded 2.7 million studies this year, and we have around 3,000 medical imaging devices connected to Trice. You could think that that number is a low number, but we are actually the biggest cloud solution in ultrasound globally. We have most imaging devices connected. We handle around 1 terabyte of data per day, and we're available in 42 countries. So we our classical SaaS solution with the evergreen subscription, meaning you sign up for a year, and if you don't quit the service 30 days before that year, the next year will roll over. And you buy Tricify in packages per machine or per transaction. And we have different type of packages. Either you use our basic service that is only to replace USBs, thermal printouts, to share data directly from the imaging devices to a doctor or for a patient. Our second package is that you archive the data, and our third package is that you could do the documentation. And then, of course, we have different prices for different type of packages, a classical SaaS business model. Our average price per study is around $1, and things that are super important for us when it comes to our sales funnel is to understand our conversion rate. So when we receive a lead from our web page or from any of our activities, it's a turnover of 63%. If our customer gets up on a trial, we do have a 30-day free trial to try out the service. We have a 96% conversion rate. Another number that is extremely important for us to focus on is churn, meaning how many customers that leaves us every year, and it's under 2%. And I would say this for a SaaS solution or B2B company shouldn't be above 5%. That's a good churn. You could see some of our customers here. We are so proud with that. We have Johns Hopkins, we have Mount Sinai in the US, we have Akademiska, Karolinska, Lund University, Sahlgrenska, Aleris, Capio in Sweden. Those are probably names that you know about. But we do, our biggest market is the North America market. And when it comes to women's health, we have around 800 clinics in the US. So we have a simple business plan. First, we don't want to replace USBs and thermal papers. A lot of these imaging devices around the world are not connecting to PACS system, only 20%. And we do want to make sure that small and medium sales, we want to automate them as much as possible. So when you receive a new device that has Tricify that is embedded, you should only be able to put in an email, and then it's an automated process to onboard you to the Tricify solution. So normal practice today actually get up and running on Tricify. For example, like Sahlgrenska that I connected maybe 5 months ago, they have around 12 machines and they were up and running on the Tricify solution and trained within an hour. And of course, the next big play for us is data. One thing that is so when it comes to our channel strategies, our motto is to be able to be embedded in these type of imaging devices. These are our sales channel. Philips, Samsung, GE. With GE, we're actually embedded in all of their imaging devices when it comes to ultrasound and all of their segments when it comes to imaging. And we are also embedded in Sonosite, and a couple of more medical device partners are coming out the upcoming year. But we also work with distributors, close with distributors. Distributors that are mostly distributors for the medical device manufacturers and for EMR solutions globally. And we also, for smaller and medium-sized practices, sell online. So this is what we kind of done. This is our global distribution network. This is what we've done the last 12 years. But what are our learnings during these years? So key learnings is building our sales during the baby years before our product were established. I would say don't assume it works in one country or one imaging segment. It will work anywhere. Make sure you do your homework to understand the customer's problems and needs in every market segment before you launch. Don't settle on one partner. Don't do exclusive agreements. This can be extremely dangerous for a startup. I've seen a lot of startups during my years going bankrupt because they did exclusive agreement with bigger partners. Hire people that knows the market, that has the Rolodex, knows the industry and the culture in every country. Extremely important. Otherwise, it will take a longer time for your founding team to get up and running on that market. Do leaderships and trials is a very good way to teach the market what your product could do for that industry. Make sure you have key opinion leaders. There are luminaries in your segment that can vouch for you, can open doors, that can help you develop your product. And if you want to work through distributors, you first need to have your own sales team and support team in place before you work with distributor. It's because working with distributor, you have to have a task team with different type of people in your team that works closely, that follow up the distributors weekly. And in the beginning, don't spread your management and sales team too thin. No is a good way to success. And adjust your product. This has been very important for us when it comes to reimbursement. In some type of industry, you will get money from the government if you have different type of features. That could be a good way to scale. So what the learnings during scaling our business the last 4 years. It's all about structure and automations to scale fast. You have to have one global sales process for the company, and for distributors, you have to have KPIs for every stage on the sales funnel. You have to have clear KPIs per salesperson, goals, how many leads, how many outreach activities they need to do to partners, to customers, how many upsells they need to do on their customer base, leads in new segments, etc. You should have a close collaboration with the marketing team to build awareness in social media with partner channels and email campaigns. You have to be able to adjust your offering and pricing after each market. You can't have the same prices in India as you have in the US. It will not work. One thing that we've done the last 2 years is to establish an academy. So we have an academy that do webinars, they do trainings, they have user guidance, they have marketing material, they have sales material, they have user stories for distributors. So all of our partners and distributors and even our sales team have the right tools in place to do a good job. We also communicate weekly with our customer base in every part of the sales funnel. How we communicate with leads, how we communicate with trials, how we communicate with customer, and don't forget, even communicate with terminated customers. Make sure you follow your competition position closely. So you know the pricing in every market, so you know how to position your product against your competitors. And what we've been working with the last couple or 2 years is a sales strategy for different types of deals, meaning small and medium deals. We're trying to streamline and automate them as much. And when it comes to mega deals, we will have a task team and more solution selling and change management. And something that is important when you're doing these kind of mega deals or bigger deals is that you make sure you have a CEO and a CFO offering to organizations. So I actually put a link here, Ronja, for our academy. If people want to, it's actually official. So you can go to this. It's a public site where you can see our academy, how we've been building up our academy to training both our customers, partners, and distributors, and actually even our team. That was it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Johanna, for sharing your insights with us. This is really exciting stuff. Next up, improving business-to-business sales. What is business-to-business sales really? Is it a relationship game? Is it a technique? How does one truly succeed at business-to-business sales? Welcome, John Elvesjö, co-founder of Tobii eye tracking system. Hello. Francesco Mazzotta, founder of Pilloxa. Hi. Karin Ebbinghaus, CEO, Elonroad. Kajsa Arvidsson, CEO of Seliro. Welcome. How are you all feeling today?
Thank you.
We all good?
Good.
Great.
Yeah. In a few short sentences, what does your company do? If we start with Francesca.
Hi, we support people stay adherent to medication treatment while keeping focus on what they value the most, their life.
All right. And Jon, can you tell us about Tobii?
Yeah, absolutely. So Tobii is the eye tracking company. So we do sensors and softwares to help people communicate using their eyes, play games with using their eyes, or just analyze eye movement to improve messaging. But I'm now over at a VC, as you can see here. So,
Frankly, yes. Karin, CEO of Elonroad. What do you guys do?
Yes, we have developed a system that can auto-charge your electrical vehicle, both in motion as well as being parked.
Fantastic. And Kajsa, Seliro, what do you do?
So we do software for the smart connected home. That means we do Wi-Fi software for manufacturers of smart home solutions, but we also sell to service providers or operators who want to control their software so they can have a value-driven business development of their home offering.
Fantastic. You're all doing so interesting stuff. When I say sales, what does it mean to you? Anyone who takes the word first?
Creating value.
Yeah, solving problems.
I'd say monetizing on the all the investments.
Yeah, and matching needs with solution.
It sounds like you practiced this one. How does one excel truly at B2B sales? Kajsa, let's start with you.
Would you want to start?
Yeah.
So I think the key thing in excelling in B2B is to really be sure about what is the problem that you are solving. I mean, B2B is always either you work on smoothing your customers' machinery or you add to their offering. And what is it that you add? Where are you unique? And what is it that, is really down to being an expert on what's the problem you solve, so you add value.
Yeah, and that's one major thing also for entrepreneur, because we always go directly into pitch mode. So it's really important to listen and create connections. So understand needs and opportunities more than just pitching your thing.
Yeah, and also
Absolutely.
remember that people like to buy things from people they trust and like. So creating a quick trust base is really important.
So it sounds like a relationship game then.
Yes, to some extent it is. It's combining, I guess, numbers and figures with emotions. I mean, everyone you meet take decisions not only based on facts, but thinking fast and slow, using both systems. So you have to work both systems at the same time.
Yeah, especially.
I think it's key to understand your customer. It doesn't necessarily have to be a long relationship every time and for every business, but it definitely has to do with understanding your customers' needs, problems, and how your offering can actually help. Because that's key to emphasizing the sale and closing the sale.
Great.
Completely agree.
Do you guys have your signs maybe, so we can play a little game, yes and no? Do you have them?
Yes.
Great.
No. Yeah, I have mine.
Fantastic. I will give you a statement, and if you agree, you show yes. If you disagree, you show us no. Okay? Is this crystal clear? Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Those are practice runs. Perfect. Okay. First statement. Anyone can become a great salesperson. Oh, come on, quicker than that.
No.
Okay, keep your signs up so we can see them. Okay, Jon, why no?
You said great. So I think anybody can work with sales, but maybe not be a great salesperson. I think there is a type of personality that really does not enjoy it. And if you do not enjoy whatever it is, you will never be great at it. So you have to kind of enjoy it. So I'd say there are definitely people that don't really enjoy it.
Okay.
I like the attitude that anybody can actually be really good. And if they were to like it, if they could come to like it, yes, then everybody can.
Okay. Kajsa, what do you think?
So I think that we tend to think of sales as a stereotype, but it's really about down to your passion and curiosity. If you're an expert in an area and you find a new way of solving that problem, I mean, it doesn't matter if you are extremely pushy or if you are quite introvert, as long as you are good on listening, as said, on the problem and explain how you can make things better for your customer. And as long as you do that, plus work with your team and your support system in terms of marketing, etc., then I think, no, I wouldn't say that they're excluded. As John said, if you really don't like it, you have a set up mind that I don't want to meet customers or I don't want to argue about the how I can solve things, of course, but possible, yes.
Okay, next question. Business to business sales sounds more complicated than it is. Yes or no? Signs up. Wow, we all agree. Fantastic. Francesco, what do you think about this?
Yeah, well, in my perspective, the complexity comes from the fact that usually, or especially sometimes, you have misalignment between the user, the customer, and the buyer. They're not the same person, which means that automatically becomes multiple stakeholders, and you need to chart, understand role, incentives. So it is a little bit a longer game than one can think of.
All right, Karin, what are your opinions?
I fully agree, because it's when you do like business to consumer, I mean, often the person making the decision can also pay for it. But when you do business to business, as Francesco said, you have those multiple stakeholder levels. And sometimes you think you had a really good meeting, but it was not the person who can make the decision or has the budget. So from that perspective, it wasn't a good meeting. So getting to execution is really important, and that could be hard.
Fantastic. Okay, next question. So are you guys ready? Yes. I messed up a sale once.
Is that meaning that we missed the business or that it became chaos?
Whatever it means to you. I messed up a sale once. Wait, signs everybody up so we can compare.
Oh, no.
At the same time. All right, so that means that we have 3 yeses. Wow, so John, you've never messed up a sale, ever.
No, I messed up so many. Not once. I actually once attended I started my entrepreneurial journey starting a pure phone sales business with some friends. And we had as a practice, every new salesperson, the first thing they had to do was to mess up a sale. So we had some really impossible customers, categories basically. So make your worst sales pitch here and just mess everything up so you're done with it. So it's bound to happen. It has to happen. You have to accept that it happens, but try not to, but you have to accept it. So otherwise you cannot enjoy it. Otherwise you're just going to be too stiff.
So besides accepting the fact that it does happen, what are your learnings? Karin?
Basically, it's so if you want to have one deal, you perhaps have to talk to 100 customers and get 10 pitches, and then you get 1 closure. So you just have to accept that you have to kiss a lot of frogs out there to find your prince.
Okay, Francesco, what are your learnings from a messed up sale?
Oh, that's pretty. First, meetings are not revenue. And it is okay to talk about money. That's something that people have a hard time doing it, and myself too, especially in the start. And as we were speaking before, like about make sure you understand the difference between a curiosity and interest. So I had a lot of trouble in the first months understanding, like, is this a person who's interested in our solution or just curious about our solutions? And that's a big return on investment on the time you spend in meeting customers.
Kajsa, what are your learnings?
Yeah, so learning early in my career, you easily get enthusiastic, right? You find a deal, you can get in, and it's very short to closing. So you are only there for roadkill because you're there to push somebody else's prices and roadmap. And I think that you learn quickly. It's you spend a lot of resources, but you really were not in the deal.
Gotcha. Okay, next questions. Next question, not questions. Let's take it one at a time. A salesperson's network is the most important asset. Signs up. Wow, we agree again. Okay. Karin, what do you think? What is then the most important asset?
I would say it's to both be curious and well educated about the area that you're entering into, because if you change your areas, your perhaps old network will be obsolete. So then you have to develop a new one. So people change their position. So I guess network is of course important, because I said in the beginning, it's all about trust. And if you can get introductions by someone who knows someone, the level of trust increases. But then again, it's like when you train out, it's fresh and it needs to be up to date. So it's not really your greatest value. It's more your attitude towards network, I guess.
Okay, John, what do you think?
No, I think one thing that I've observed is that if you rely too much on a specific network, you might actually have good traction in the beginning, but it means your sales will not scale. So building sales is not really just having one fantastic person. If you cannot train people within a reasonable time to actually contribute to your sales, it's not going to scale. So I think it's very dangerous to have that one fantastic salesperson with a great network, or to have a product that needs a strong relationship to be sellable. So the good products, the good companies, they can actually onboard new salespeople. Some will churn, some will actually not perform, but it is possible without a network to actually come in and add to the sales team. I think that's key. So I would actually discount the kind of the network effect, because it's something that you can monetize on for a short bit and only on certain individuals.
Francesco, it seems like you have thoughts there.
No, it's really important. I really good thoughts from both Karin and John. I think that yes, that contact and networks can be really important. Maybe for your if you're working in medtech or for your first hire, in order to get like a quick boost to sales for you to then be able to scale your team. But it's not a must-have. It's definitely a nice to have if you have the rest in place. So I think network can be an important, like if you have the same level of skills, network can be a big plus, especially in the start, to just skyrocket a little bit sales in the first days. But it's not something that will be important for scaling. I completely agree.
Great. Karin, Kajsa, anything you want to add?
I think that the network does not necessarily have to sit on the salesperson. There it's more important to be trustworthy and know really what you are, if you are disrupting something, for example. But you can have, if you're in your GTM phase, if you get the network from a mentor or from your board members, your investors, I mean, those who open the door so you get your first references, then it's not the salesperson per se who needs to sit on the network.
Karin?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. As I said in the beginning, networking is one thing, but it's really more the attitude towards gaining more customers. And as John said, to be able to scale, network could be limiting. So you have to have the processes in place in order to scale your sales.
Great. We have a question here from the audience. Shouldn't good marketing be the base for quick sales?
Oh.
Francesco?
Well, yes, I guess like in a more traditional term, basically marketing is the one that is like filling the funnel in the start. So marketing is the one that helps identifying high quality prospects, and it would be the one that is helping in the conversion. So when those people are understand your placement, it will increase trust and decrease the barrier to conversion. So marketing is definitely an important tool into sales, and I think it's really important, especially for companies like startups or scale-ups, to connect marketing and sales to the same KPIs so that you can all work in the same direction. So you don't create silos that are not speaking to each other, and when the marketing KPIs are disconnected from the sales output. I think it's a really good point. It can be a short-term play or a long-term play with branding, for example. It doesn't have to be sales tomorrow, but it's really important to think how they work together.
Great.
I think also adding to what you say, Francesco, is this of where you define sales start. Is it the whole customer journey? And marketing drives it all the way through the transactional part where sales take over. Or if sales are set more to have a challenger sales approach and take on quite early in the buying process, and marketing is more defined as the ones building brand and brand trust, etc.
Great. That was actually all we had time for. But I feel like we could talk to you for another hour. There is so much knowledge here. Thank you so much for joining us in the panel. I hope you guys have a great day. And it is time for us, bye guys. It is time for us to visit Melissa Jenkins from Ekkono Solutions. She claims to be a geek who loves computers, and maybe it was that geekiness who led her to become CTO at Tele2 ITO before she became CSO at Ekkono. And fun fact, she is a glider pilot and is the team captain for the British gliding team in Britain. So it's safe to say that Melissa Jenkins isn't scared to take on a challenge and always aims for success. And that is why she's here to tell us, what does proof of concept success mean? Over to you, Melissa.
Yeah, so it's always a challenging one, what proof of concept even is for some customers. So I have a very quick presentation that we're going to talk about. And this is a little unusual for me because me and PowerPoint aren't best friends. But I thought we'd start off with, exactly what Ekkono does, because I think it's important to establish the fact that we are a startup. So therefore we have a perspective of proof of concepts. And we do a lot of proof of concepts. We're super good at them, like most startups. And that is because everything we do is new, leading edge. It's machine learning and IoT. That's pretty cool and pretty hard to get right. But is that success? Is success what happens when you get something out there and it works and the customer goes, yes, that is success. That's probably, it's stolen from our archives. So it might even be the first time we celebrated a proof of concept success. And this is what it looks like. If you're a startup, this is what you think a proof of concept does for you. It's a vision, it's a prospect. You get a customer, they're interested, you demonstrate that your magic works, you get a contract and you make money. And that is as simple as it should be, right? Sadly, and anyone who's worked in a big company knows that it's actually a little bit more like this. And having worked in lots of big companies in my time, and every single one of them has had a different product development process, a different way of putting in change requests, a different way of engaging with customers, a different way of selling. The first thing you realize is that actually the proof of concept is really just the beginning of the journey. It's this little star down in the bottom left-hand corner. And once you've done a proof of concept, what you've shown is that what you have is potentially useful to that customer. And then they've got a whole pile of different things they need to do in order to achieve value from that. And every single one of those customers has a different process for doing that. And that makes it really interesting as a startup. How do you make something that is actually useful to those customers? How do you make something that develops and works with their process? So if we look at this reality a little bit more, the process is different. There's lots of different departments involved. There's lots of different types of budgets in corporates and large companies. But actually, there's also this little catch at the very bottom, which is even if you succeed on all of this, you'll probably have to do a request for type process, an I or a P or a Q or a Z or an M or whatever the current letter is that goes at the end of that. And that can make everything take extra long. So let's look at some ways that you can short circuit that, because, you know, we could talk about the difference in views on what proof of concept is, but actually what's really useful is how to move past this and how to actually get your customer involved in buying your product. So therefore, to define success as a customer has used it and they've paid you for that proof of concept potentially, that's the start of it. But the reality is you need to use this time getting that customer hooked. You've got the door open, they're interested in what you have. You've demonstrated that it is useful to them. And that means it's probably useful to their end customers as well, which means it has business value to them. But what you need to do is make sure that they keep thinking about you, that you're part of that process, that if they do an RFX or a P or an I or a Q, that they're thinking about you and that they remember to call you, that they ask you how to do different things and they have that thought leadership. So I thought I'd talk about a couple of different processes for doing that, because there are different processes and there are different techniques, and you'll have been familiar with all of these, but the question is which ones are you actually using? So I'm calling these reality shortcuts, and these are different ways that companies have used to get from that proof of concept, from getting a bigger company interested in their product and actually getting it out there. So, you know, a white label product is a fantastic example of this. Quite often these are as a service type products. So this is a product that you have developed, that you've built, that has good market fit for the customer you're talking to, that is something that adds value to those end customers. And it makes it really easy for them to expand their market size, to get into new bases or to add new features to their customers. And this is, you know, it's a classic technique. Take something, tweak it to meet their needs and deliver it. This is almost guaranteed to hit into the RFP process before you get an actual delivery and an order. And you will, without a doubt, spend time tweaking it, adjusting the brand, playing with CSS, and every web developer loves playing with CSS and making it fit the customer's requirements, because there's absolutely no possible way that the way it looks is going to be right for them. But it does have the advantage that you're not demonstrating and building it into all of their different processes. You can have a solution that's quick and easy to implement that gets them up and running, which means that they don't need to figure out what it is that their market needs. All they need to do is figure out how to sell it and how to support it. So that's one, that's kind of keeping it simple for the end customer. Another potential one is that you can be useful. So lots and lots of great tools in the world, particularly if you're developing products. You know, Slack is a useful tool. It's not something that a company has to spend a long time getting budget right. It's not part of their product development process. It's actually part of their internal systems processes. You know, screwdrivers and hammers are all exactly the same. And Ekkono as well. You know, our library is something that is actually useful to them in the development process and reduces their overhead and their hassle of doing it. So that's a really simple way of getting something started earlier. So you could be part of the development process and you're adding value right up front rather than just at the end of the process. It's quite interesting to note that in almost every company, this is a different budget as well, because it's going to be part of the tooling budget. So it's much easier to get approval for this than it is to get approval for starting a new product development from scratch and for getting it built into a product. And once you get the people who are making these products hooked on your tool, they're much more likely to adopt it and use it for other things as well. And the third shortcut I wanted to talk about is kind of the standard fallback one, which is that you go for the free option. You know, open source is a great way of getting users. You know, and especially if you get your licensing structure right, then you get the option of charging for deployment on that. This is really so in the hardware space where you can't use GPL very easily because it is a deployment, which means you need to ship source code. So having a free option is a good way of getting into people who are actually making the real decisions on how something's implemented. It's often low friction, and it is great from an approval point of view. However, it's not always as straightforward as this. And if you look in the open source world, there's millions and millions of projects, and very few of them actually earn any money. And the ones that do typically do it around the services and the value that adds to that. It doesn't shortcut all the rest of the challenges that these people will have and the companies and the processes around how do they build this? What does the product look like? but it does get you in the door at the very first point. So just very straightforward, very simple, not too many different options, but there are many ways you can twist this. And I just have to say that the important thing about all of this is the communication. It's really, really important that as a startup or as a corporate, you understand the difference in success and what the process is and how that is going to work as you go forwards. And if you don't have that communication, then you haven't started forming a great relationship. And that great relationship is how you are useful and how you take this forward and make it something that is interesting for the end customer. Now, I don't have a whole lot more to say on this. I'm notorious for doing super fast presentations. The guidance is that you're supposed to have 1 slide per minute. I reckon probably actually it's more like 5 slides a minute for me. But yeah, I'm sure that Ronja and I can have a really interesting discussion about exactly what this actually means and how you can make more use around that. But I just want to say, don't give up. Just because you've got a proof of concept and your corporate or customer has stopped being involved and interested, it doesn't actually have any impact on your ability to take this to the next level. You just need to keep knocking on the door, asking them how they're going. Talk to them about different ways that they can actually gain value from your product and refine your offering so that when you are ready to go live, you have everything they need. You have the operational capabilities, you have the ability to deliver this as technology, but you also have the ability to work with them and evolve and make their product better long-term. Because it does take time to get stuff out in the market, and it's always a lot longer than you think it's going to be as a startup. And I think that pretty much covers my super quick introduction on ways that you can make your proof of concept something a bit more than just the flash in the pan and never talk to them again.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And I want to say we have a comment here live from the chat that says, this is a really great presentation. So thank you so much for that, Melissa. And if you want to know more about Ekkono, tune in at 2 o'clock for the Ignite conference. Have a great rest of your day, Melissa.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to Martin Sjöstrand, CEO of Lexplore. Welcome, are you with me?
I'm with you.
Hi.
Good to be here.
How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm good. I mean, I'm having the best time here in the studio. So, tell me, before we get to talking about business-to-business sales strategy in the public sector, what is Lexplore?
We are a Swedish company, and we have, based on research from Karolinska Institute, developed an AI system using eye tracking technology and AI and machine learning to develop a system that can, with very high accuracy and very objectively, can assess reading skills and reading levels among children and students. And to that, we also have a digital toolbox that helps teachers and school organizations to improve literacy.
Fantastic.
And today we are on our way into 9 countries in 5 continents and growing pretty fast. So very excited.
I mean, clearly you're growing, but in what way is Lexplore groundbreaking?
It's groundbreaking because with the use of that AI and eye tracking technology, we are the first system that can provide completely objective results. And also we can, for example, assess silent reading, which means that we can see how students are reading silently, and there's no other known method that can do that. And also we see that our customers, they refer to us as, we are bringing in a digital platform to school organizations to drive literacy improvements across all schools and all classes in municipalities or school districts and so forth, which has never been there before. So it's a number of things. And also we bring back time to teachers to teach and instead of administrate. So.
And if I remember correctly, your technology is based on Tobii technology, right?
Yeah, so I saw the previous session here. Yeah, correct. Tobii is the market leader, and we rely on Tobii as being the eye tracker provider to us. So yes, there's certainly a link there.
But it's truly amazing that Swedish innovation creates new Swedish innovation.
Absolutely, I agree completely.
When we spoke on the phone earlier prior to this interview, you said you want to demystify sales. What do you mean by that?
Well, I want to demystify sales to the public sector. I have a long history in selling to the private sector, both internationally and also nationally. And I think you can think that this public sector is something completely different, but it isn't. That's a little bit what I mean. And I think the same as many have said already in the panels earlier, that you still need to have the value argumentation in place. You still need to understand who are the informal and formal decision makers. You still need to understand how you need to convey the message that your product and your company is something that will sustain for a long time. So when you take the investments, you don't do it for a short period of time, you do it for a longer period of time. So I think what I mean is that a lot of the common basic understanding of business-to-business selling applies in the public sector as well. So for that perspective, it's very much the same, I should say.
Well, I know that you've been in sales or the private sector or leading sales teams for most of your life, but it's the past year that you've been working towards the public sector. Was it a shock, or was it just a smooth sailing ride because it's just the same?
It wasn't a shock. I think there are commonalities, as I said, but of course there are also differences. And I think, for example, I mean, if you go to a public sector, now I should say that I speak mostly from the experience in the educational sector, I should say, so I can't speak for medical, for example, other things. But what is certain is that this is politically driven organization to start with. So the people that takes decision are less mandated to take decision than if you go to a private sector where the CEO or CTO or CFO can just write the check and go for your product. So the anchorage process is much more very, very different, and also it's more of a kind of a consensus kind of system that you need to also convince more stakeholders than you do have to do in the private sector. And because of that, things takes more time. So I think one thing you have to have is patience and perseverance to get in there. And I think also you cannot go in with argument to, if you buy my product or my solution, you can make profits, for example, because profit doesn't exist in the public sector. So you have to go in with other kind of value-based or value propositions than you could do then in the private sector, for example. So there are a lot of different differences. All in all, it's the same process and the same handicraft, same thing you have to do daily, so to speak.
Okay, so longer sales cycles, more perseverance. But can we talk more about those values that you talked about? So what does a meeting look like when you're sitting there with the private sector versus the public sector? So a private sector can talk about revenue and other things that they like. Then what does the value look for the public sector?
So typically when we sell into the public sector, it differs, I should say, also between countries. And I will elaborate that a bit also later. But I think a typical thing you need to do to sell what we are producing to the public sector or the educational sector is that you need to convince both the people on the ground, so to speak, the special ed teachers and those people working every day with the solution. But you also need to convince the decision makers, like being the principal or different, and you need to do it with different value argumentation as well. And also one thing, at least what we have learned, is that it's a lot about convincing with evidence. So you need to have a good arsenal, a good bank of evidence and proof points to prove your case. And I think one thing that we are also very is good for us is that we have a research background, and we can talk about that the research is suggesting this is suggesting this works. We also have continuous research projects going on in different parts of the world because we need to back up our argumentation with local research also. So it's much more proof points, much more evidence, other type of evidence, I should say, perhaps, as you would have in the private sector.
So you've worked in the UK as well towards schools, correct?
Yeah. So
what is the difference between Sweden and the UK when it comes to public sector?
Yeah, excellent question. I think one of the things that I thought about going into this session here is that if you believe that if you live in Sweden, which we do here, for example, and if you believe that you can copycat what the Swedish set up on the public sector into other countries, you are wrong. And I've been working, as I said, abroad with international for 30 years, and I've been living abroad as well for a number of those years. And so what you have to do is really to understand how the different sectors works. Here in Sweden, for example, we have 290 municipalities. We have 10 million people divided into 290 municipalities. We are selling on municipality level here. So because they look after the public schools. So we go in to the individual schools, as I mentioned before, we talk to special teachers, we do the bottom-up kind of argumentation. but we also go into the superintendents or the ones who are heading up the decision makers on the municipality level, and you sell on completely different merits there. Because in the school you sell on helping each child and helping the process and that kind of arguments. While if you go to the top, you sell on more the merits of a digital platform that can allow you to have an overlook of all your schools, all your classrooms, how they're performing and how they are progressing over time. You can look at how you optimize resources, and that kind of argumentation you can bring forward, which you couldn't do typically in the UK, because in the UK it works completely different. There is no concept of municipalities overseeing schools. There you have to go school by school. It's 30,000 schools in the UK, and you have to sell school by school. So it becomes more of a transactional sales there. And also the value argumentation that you have for the municipality level, that doesn't apply there. So you need to adjust to those kind of conditions. And the third example would be Portugal, for example, which we are on our way into. There, the government, the Minister of Education, takes decision on what to invest for all schools in the whole country. So I think, a learning I have got from this year of public sector selling is that you need really to understand how the public sector and your part of the public sector actually works. So it's not like you can copy from one country to another or from one system to another, or not even within countries, as you say.
So there is no perfect recipe for sales in the UK and a perfect recipe for how to succeed with sales in Sweden?
No, of course, still there's a lot of common basics for sure, but yeah, it differs a lot. And typically in the UK, we have taken, it's 30,000 schools. It's impossible for us to address all the 30,000 schools. It is possible for us to address 290 municipalities. So we have a hybrid selling strategy in the UK. We both sell with direct sales staff, but we also have engaged partner sales. And then you need to be prepared to give away a big portion of your product or your revenue, because, I always say to my team that you need to differentiate. You need to understand whether we are a nice to have or a must have product for partners, as well as for customers, I guess. Because if you just are a nice to have, you can bet on that they will not run the extra mile to win for you because you are not relevant enough for them. That said, if you have, like we have signed up with partners in the UK, they are incumbent in 12,000 schools in the UK. You can imagine the power of having access of all those 12,000 schools. So, it's a choice you have to make.
So there are a lot of startups team watching this. What are your best tips or techniques that you can give them in how to succeed in sales to the public sector in Sweden?
In Sweden?
Yes. Let's begin there.
Well, I think there's a lot of literature available to understand the basic principles of selling techniques. I think to some of the other speakers or the panels you had, I think it's more important to listen than to talk when you talk to customers. And it's the same if you go on private or public. So I don't know if it's a specific cure. I think you need to also be prepared to take time. Of course, as I said, it's not an easy fix. You need to have perseverance. And one of the things I think which is very important, depending a little bit how the customer base looks like, of course, in my previous examples, is that if you have a product that has a very long sales cycle, it takes time to sell, and it has a relatively low value, the combination of that is very dangerous, because the problem is that if you go and start addressing your customers in Sweden, for example, and then you do that for 6 months, and on a Friday you get to know from this specific customer, you can throw away that relationship you've been building for 6 months. A bigger company, they will go back on Monday morning and say, oh, by the way, I have this product as well. So I think there you need to think carefully about what is direct sales my method to do it or not. So I think there's a number of this kind of considerations you need to make, but there are selling techniques, there are good selling, business-to-business selling tutorials out there. I actually have I came across one that one former colleague of mine was developing right now that I think is brilliant. And I can drop it in the chat if you want to have an access to that.
Yes, please do.
But I think take time, discuss with others how to approach this, what is the fundamentals. And I think somebody said something that is very easy as a startup to believe that your product is everything and you are so passionate about it. Take a step back, really understand your target selling environment. And again, it's not different from public and private. I think I always said a lot of the selling is done at your desk and in the team. And also, as I said before, I think it's very important to understand the pain points, understand the value props that fits the public sector.
Speaking of team, because you mentioned it, if there's a startup team out there watching and they need to hire someone in sales, should they go for the way more expensive senior person, or should they save money by hiring someone who is new but very hungry for the role? What would you say?
The panel there partly answered that, didn't they? The previous panel there, because I think my experience tells me that, well, it's very, very expensive to hire the wrong salesperson. Not only the cost of the person, but the cost of the missing out of sales, of course, and you delay of your ramp up, for example. So you need to be extremely careful. If there's any role in the company that you really carefully should examine what to have, maybe take help, maybe even pay a premium for having experts in recruitment in that specific one, as opposed to other roles which you can do over the internet or with social medias and so forth. So that would be my first recommendation. Whether I also believe personality is more important than what do you call it, the number of references or contacts you have in the target market. But I would definitely, if I'm a startup, I would definitely go for a person if I see a CV, if I'm recruiting a sales person and I see a CV that I was heading up a sales organization, I had $100 million in sales and I grow that from 50 to 100 in 3 years, I would never go for that person. Because if your expected turnover of the same person next year would be $1 million, or usually euros or Swedish or whatever, then that person will be disappointed and you will be disappointed. And I don't think it's a good match.
Great. Thank you so much, Martin. We actually have to move on in the program. Thank you so much for this session and enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you stay with us here all day online, right? It is time for us to head over to Ignite Sweden's own sales expert. Jakob Nielsen will give you his 5 key takeaways for successful startup sales to corporates. Having worked in management position in global corporations and in the startup community, he is a forerunner for sustainability and business development. With his high energy, he has become one of the most sought-after coaches for startups, accelerators, corporates, and investors. Please welcome Jakob Nielsen. Jakob, are you with us?
Thank you very much.
Hi, yes, there you are.
Thank you very much, Ronja, for the introduction and for moderating this session. So good. I will share my screen. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. So did you know that spider silk is about 0.003 millimeter in diameter? And yet it's 5 times stronger than steel. And spider threads contains many long molecules of proteins, and they are aligned together and work together. This is the secret why spider web, if there were sized as a human, would be able to stop a jetliner. Now you wonder why I'm taking this for you. It's because once an R&D manager in a large organization thanked an entrepreneur for building the strong spider web of relations, of decisions, of alignments between the 7 departments of his organization needed to reach the common goal of installing the first pilot installation of the entrepreneur's product. And now let me share the 5 different success factors in sales to corporates. First of all, connect. Today we have digital formats. It's easy to connect on digital. And I see in the chat already you have been super professional in sharing your LinkedIn profiles. Do that in every sales moment today, because it's so powerful and you can connect with people, not today only, but tomorrow as well. You will see their peers in the organizations, and you will be able to build networks across professions. So this is a very powerful channel for sales for startups. Be precise. Always present your ask. This is a sheet bent knot, and it's used to tie together small lines together with thick ropes. And the analogy is simple, right? A startup starting to work together with a corporate, a large organization. Always have your ask ready. If you're a startup entrepreneur, you always are in need of something. And having a meeting with a corporate, you should be presenting your ask. Are you looking for a proof of concept together with a corporate? Or are you looking for a pilot, a paid pilot, of course? Or are you looking for a partnership, a long-term partnership, starting with the next meeting? Be frank and be straightforward and build trust. I think it has already been said in this meeting. Karin Ebbinghaus just mentioned the word create trust. And you will see how to build this spider web together with the corporates. This is the good example of how to present yourself. The story. In one picture, together with words, the context, and a close-up. This very startup succeeds in presenting what they're doing in words, from heat to electricity. They excel in the way they can expose the context. They are in a power plant, and they're transforming heat to electricity by the device that you can see in the close-up. And this is their front page of the presentation to the corporate. It is in 1 second showing where they are, in what maturity level, that they have customers, maybe not paying full price, but yet in an installation. They are piloting their solution and they're getting feedback. They are learning and they are professional in their field. So this is the very good start, how to expose where you are and what you're doing. Simplicity is a virtue. Ekkono was just saying this, keep it simple. And simplicity is a virtue. It's easy to say, but it's very hard to do. So do your homework. Plan and practice. Practice and be performing in the very way of choosing exactly what to say in a very short format. So it's easy for the ones that are receiving the message to take further on, because that person might have 10 meetings after the meeting with you, and having the role of taking your message into their organization. And then they have to remember what was the message. So be very simple. Keep it simple from heat to electricity in the context and in the close-up. Talk through pictures. And then, of course, where are your 10x? Tell about your uniqueness. Why you? Why now? What is your unfair experience, unfair advantage of being in this area? Show trends that goes well aligned with your startup goal. And be bold. Tell them the absolute beauty of your solution. And tell them where you can save 10 times the workforce, 10 times the workload, the work time, the money, the cost, or even be 10 times safer. And use only that. And today we have a lot of software and AI startups. And this is where 10 times come into the picture. But don't fall into the presenter's paradox. Because humans tend to collect all the good things about the solution and collect all the numbers. So if you're performing number 10 in one dimension, you're absolutely top 10, and you're performing 10 out of 10. Use only that one. If you have some other good things about your solution, but maybe not number 10, people tend to put it all together and then take the average instead of reminding where you are the absolute best. So evaluate the value. People take the average in components instead of the sum. That is the presenter's paradox. Check that out on Medium, for example. There's plenty of articles written about the presenter's paradox. Now, the global goals, you have to be aware of how do you work towards the global goals. Today, large corporations, any organizations, public sector, private sector, are working towards coming towards the global goals in 2030. 192 state government leaders around the world have decided to work towards these goals. And if you as a startup entrepreneur have the goal that you are working towards, for example, the number 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure, it's a common language, it's easy to follow, and it's much, much more easy for people to understand what you're doing. Customers who hear your purpose, your clear purpose of how to change the future, will be willing to spend 66% more cost on you than if you not have the global goals into your business. They're willing to test things 50% more likely. And they're also willing to use their network 50% more. And this is research done on this. So if you're a startup, link your idea, link your solution to the global goal. This will help you in building your strong spider web within the organization. And also tell about why are you doing the things. Talk about your big vision. Talk about where you want to go with your startups. What is the ultimate goal and the effect on the world? Can you save lives? Can you save the planet? Tell that. Now, Steve Blank, back in 2010, stated the essence of a startup, that it's a temporary organization in search for a repeatable and scalable business model. And I've actually added the word sustainable because I think that is today one of the most important things for a startup to do. But let me just stop at the word search, because all companies, independent of startups or large corporation, should be in search. Even large corporations not having innovation will be affected by the changing environment. So they have to be searching for new solutions, new markets, new behaviors. And this is where we come to the people. Go out and get out of the building to talk to people. Learn as much as possible. Get involved. Be the expert. Create the trust. And as Johanna at Trice Imaging said, the first learning she was sharing was about do your homework, understand the customer's problems. And if you as an entrepreneur just go out in the market and tell about your solution, you will not learn anything. You will not be able to change, to adapt. Instead, you should actually ask questions about how are your everyday working? What's your problems? Do you have any challenges? What's your organization look like? What obstacles do you have in your everyday life? Do you have a pain? Are you willing to pay for a solution for that pain? How much are you willing to pay? Ask a lot of questions and listen, and then repeat the answers and get the customers to repeat themselves and to elaborate and build further history and become the expert. If you as an entrepreneur becomes the expert, you will build trust. And as said, if they like you, they will listen to you, but if they trust you, they will buy from you. And if you're unsure, you can go to the mom test and you can check out exactly how to do this in a very easy way. You can find the clips on YouTube, how to go out on customers and ask open-ended questions in order to learn about the users, about the customers and their everyday. The beauty of a startup is, of course, that you can change. So if you listen to the customers carefully, talk 20% and listen 80% of the time, then go back, reflect, what did you hear? Analyze, what impact do that have on our solution? And then change. I've been working in very many startup accelerators, and one of the daily questions we had to the startups are, what have you changed today? So if you're not changing, you're not using the potential you have as a startup to be agile, to be changing and finding the right spot on the market, to find the product market fit. I've seen so many entrepreneurs with products looking for a market, and it's too sad. Go out and listen 80% of the time. And finally, call to action. If you have a meeting with a corporate, be prepared. Have set aside time together with your colleagues. When can we meet this corporation? When can we meet the organization? Set aside time slots where you and your colleagues in the startups could meet next time. So come with a proposal already in the meeting. Be sure to get the addresses, mail addresses, and names of the persons. Maybe they're not in the meeting today, but they will be in the next meeting. It could be the experts, it could be decision makers or peers in the organization. Because as the R&D manager told us, to build the spider web is to be able to organize, to build strong connections, to line up in a common goal together with all these different people and find the things that make them tick. And even if you don't get the next meeting, set a time where you will call back and call back. Do that. That is also one thing to be able to create trust. So to wrap up, to be able to build the strong spider web, I would urge you to connect. Never be afraid to connect. This could be in an elevator, it could be in the meeting, it could be like in a meeting like this one, posting your LinkedIn in the chat. Be aware of what is your ask, what is your need. Be prepared with your story. Have it in different length, but build on the same stones, the same building blocks. What is your uniqueness? Why you? Why now? What type of trends are you supporting? And then go out, ask, listen, learn, and change. And then be forward-leaning and get to the next meeting. Thank you very much. That was my presentation.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. Thank you so much for the sessions. Do we have any questions from the audience? Let's see, I have questions popping up here. So we have a few minutes for questions. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and Jakob will have a chance to answer. What are the most common mistakes?
The most common mistakes I see is to be talking too much about yourself, your solution, your techniques, your details. And in the end of the meeting, you end up realizing that you don't know anything about the organization or the person that you just met.
Let's see if there are other questions here. Have you ever failed with a sale? What happened?
Oh, I've failed plenty of times. So I actually get a lot of failures, but I turn them into kind of learnings. There is no such thing as failure, it's a learning. It's said in the startup community where I'm working. So if you come to a customer that is not interested in your solution, ask why. and ask who could be interested then. Could you maybe introduce me to someone that you think would need my solution? And so it's not a failure not to be able to come to the right. One of the most common failures in sales to large corporations is that you spend a lot of energy and you find out after 1 year that they have a reorganization, a reprioritization of resources, and your case is lost. As a startup, that could be equal to death, but I would urge you to then have a strong spider web and be able to still be able to go in different directions in the organization and repair it, or build the network in other directions too, together with these people.
Great. More questions. Time is crucial as a startup. What can you do to speed up the sales process?
Can you repeat that, please?
Time is crucial as a startup. What can you do to speed up the sales process?
Work in parallel. I think be able to work not towards one customer or towards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players, because when you're working with sales, you are, or in a startup, you think that you have like 5 key customers, and if that fails, it's the end of the story. But that's not true. There will be many, many, many other companies. So build your sales pipeline in different directions with different sizes of companies as well. And note that the largest corporations used to have a lot of comfort, and they're pretty safe where they are. Maybe you should targeting the number 5 on the list instead, because they might be a little bit more hungry to test out new solutions. And you could also reflect on starting with smaller companies that have shorter time to decision, and be able to test your solution, get pilots, get customers, be able to test if it's working before you go to the largest corporations, because that takes very long time.
Great. Not clear on what is the difference between call to action and what's your ask. Could you elaborate a bit, please?
So the ask is about what you need in your corporate and in your startup. What is needed in terms of, for example, if you need to validate your solution in a customer context, then that's your ask. But call to action is more that where do we need meet next? Where do you find me? What context details do I have? Who should I talk to? So the ask is more on a company level, and the call to action is more on a detail level, how to get to the next step in operations.
Great, thank you for clarifying that. What do you think is the best approach to approach a potential customer for the first time?
Depending on where you have got information on this customer, you might have seen them as sponsor for large events, or you have seen them in networking events, or you have just like found them on the web because you might see think they are interested in you. I have the recommendation to contact them with a mail, and then calling and referring to that mail.
And now when we say mail, I'm guessing you mean email, right? Not snail mail.
I mean email.
Yes. Someone might go old school listening to this.
And today I would say that email, not even email, is the model today. It could be LinkedIn, in LinkedIn. Referring to a short contact where you actually could be preferably introduced by someone. A warm introduction is always so much stronger. So if you're interested in getting in contact with a new customer, try to find someone that you know could be introducing someone at that company. Warm introduction is always much stronger. But if you don't have that, then I would say contact the person in an email at LinkedIn and then call them via the switchboard.
Fantastic. Curious to know if there is a reference to those statistics about customers being 50% more likely to test, share with their networks if you're working with the CGGs, etc.
Exactly. I have plenty of references to these. I'm actually the first business for SDG certified change leader. And I have plenty of links for those who are interested. So please connect with me and I will be happy to share that.
Great. Any tips for tech push startups, for example, commercializations of research results, as opposed to market pool startups when it comes to reaching PMF?
Oh, that was too complicated for me.
Right, we can move on to the next one if you want. Is the pain of longer sales cycles to the public sector compensated by bigger deals or more stable recurrent customer?
Yes, in one way it is. And by selling to the public sector, you could, as a startup, benefit from that the public sector have funds for testing new solutions. So if you're lucky, you could get a hold of some of that budgets for testing new solutions and be the ones that gets the opportunity. So public sector have the ability to set aside time and some resources to actually test new solutions. The example I gave with the spider web was actually in the public sector, and we experienced so many different organizational dependencies and even third-party organizations into this project. But the public sector is, of course, a good, stable customer and recurring customer. It takes a very long time. They have resources set aside for new solutions. And I would say it's maybe not the first thing. If you could choose between the public sector and private sector, I would go test my things, having a proof of concept and some validated pilots with private sector first, and then choose the public sector, or work in parallel.
Great. When approaching a client for the first time, should you also include your summary visual?
The summary visual. Yeah, Ronja, what do you mean by that?
Well, let's ask the person in the chat. What do you mean by that? Come back with the question.
Yes, thank you.
I think that's it for now. No, we have one more here. Should companies that are new and looking for initial prime level customer, let's see here, what are some of the strategies that they can use to attain and close these customers?
Prime level customers, I interpret that as the top level customers. And I would say the top level customers tend to be maybe less focused on the price tag and more focused on the quality. And hence, you have to be very, very sure that your product is working, and that you shouldn't test with them. You should have tested that with other clients first. Because you have to be validating that your solution is able to scale from 1 to 10, and then from 10 to 100, and then from 100 to 2,000, before selling to the first and the best player in the market.
Great. Thank you so much for this session. And I'm sure that you will stay online for a little bit if there are any more questions.
I will. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. At 2 o'clock, you're welcome to join the Ignite Sweden conference. It will kick off with Marie Wall, startup expert at the Ministry of Enterprise and Innovation of Sweden. Tomorrow, there will be maybe the biggest matchmaking session ever made. 435 meetings are already booked from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Swedish time. If you're one of the 134 startups who's got a meeting tomorrow, listen in here at 1 o'clock, here at the main stage for Sales Boost. It's the same link, so you don't have to change a thing. Just check back here after your lunch, after your coffee at 1 o'clock. Thank you so much for everyone who's joining the session, and I hope you all have an amazing Wednesday.